Hi, Dr. Ogo. This is Paolo Valenti, and I'm going to be going over the weight tracker app that I had made for CS-360, the mobile architecture and engineering class. And just before I jump in, I want to mention that in importing the app to the computer I'm working on now, I've run into some issues with actually like logging into the app. Obviously, that's something I'm going to correct in the final version with the enhancements, but just for the sake of you know simplicity, for the different screens, I'll just refer to the XML pages. So you know, what I mentioned makes sense like on screen as I go through it. And just before I dive into the each category and the weaknesses and the enhancements, I just want to go over the just the project overall. So I'm just going to lightly touch on each Java file before I jump right in. So the database user file, it handles all the storage and retrieving like the user info. So like username, the goal weight, phone number, if the SMS is enabled, and it has different methods involved for handling all the and retrieving all the different user information. So we have adding new users to the database, updating goal weights, and when you update the goal weights, it's going to find the appropriate field to update, and you'll see that repeated a lot. It's honestly not super ideal. I'm constantly like retrieving the entire database entry for one field, but it works. So I got updating the goal weight, updating the phone number, updating the SMS permissions, getting the SMS permissions for that specific user, getting the phone number, getting the user goal weight, and then finding specific users and just checking if the username exists. Then for the database user weight file, this manages all the user or the weight entries in the SQLite database. That's what I'm using to manage the weight for each user. So it has different methods here, such as increasing the uh, the number of rows available for each user. So as the weight entries increase, they'll add just another row with the date, the weight, and the goal weight. There's the method for deleting a row, the method for updating the user weight for a specific date, and calculating what that new goal weight will be after that change, and just retrieving the current uh, user weights once the user is on that waitlist screen. And here's the method for updating the weight difference. Again, we're constantly just searching for the appropriate column to put it in here. And also just checking to see if a set date already has a weight entry. The delete weight file, it does exactly as it sounds, so it's good for just removing existing weight entries. So what it does is it pulls in a specific ID. So it'll check the ID for that weight entry, and then it confirms any deletion and calls the database to remove it. So you select the date, get the username that's being stored, and gives messages once the database has been removed. What you'll see commonly is for the add weight, edit weight, and delete weights, it's always just rebinding the or reassigning whatever the database user weight currently is. And you'll see here that it's also used just like in the edit in the new weights. The how the dates are selected is it works from a calendar, so it's constantly grabbing today's day of the month, year, and day, and it just works off just a calendar system for all um, three options. And for the string database, just for assigning the months to an integer, I have the month format here for all 12 months. After that, we got the edit weight. So the edit weight, it's just for editing an existing weight entry. So it allows you to just pick the date that you're going through and then just update the weight for that specific day. So again, nothing too much different compared to the delete weight. We see here again, it's just working off of using like the date picker, and we're just reassigning um, the database user weight with the edit weight that's been set. There's a lot of like toast messages throughout. Even though it doesn't really help me resolve errors, it was good when I was making the code because it kind of just, I was able to track individual progress. So again, calendar, date, the date picker option, and then setting a string for the month based on the. After that is the login. This is where a lot of the when I originally made the project, this was like the main activity. So a lot of work is being done from here. So pretty much does as it sounds. It controls login information. So there's logic set up for storing the new username and password for when you're registering a user, and then just helping them log in with the appropriate toast messages for each. And over here, when you see like the database is initialized, we have like a new user being assigned there, and then also credentials for um, checking whether or not they're in the database in the first place. And all that is working just from local SQLite records. Then we have the new weight. So this is what I'm using for just adding in new weights. Again, also operating from the, sorry, keep scrolling a bit too much. Also operating from the date picker option. So again, just like the calendar selection screen. And it's just storing the weight entry in that position field for the each user database. So a lot of everything is pretty much operating off of strings here. So when we find by the iView ID, it's finding the weight. And each time a new weight is set, we got to update the database with the new weight, and that's always going to calculate the goal weight difference. And if a weight has already been set and somebody just tries to add a new weight on that date, it'll just return a toast message to let them know, like, hey, that already exists. But if the date was empty, the records is added in. So as soon as a new date with the corresponding weight is entered, a new row is added through. And then I also just have some error messages to tell me if new weights are not being entered. Again, a lot of these error messages just kind of help me track what's going on. It's not really correcting anything. It's mostly just kind of helping me. So I hope to kind of fix that in the final version. And the we have just the button programming as well. So we have like the exit button and the buttons for date picking, and again just the month string format. So then we have the recycle view file. So this operates off of a an adapter class that I'm using to give like an array list of the weight objects. So the array list, it gives objects to the recycler view UI, so it just kind of handles how it's like bound for each row, like the date, the weight, and like the difference versus the goal weight. So we have everything listed here, the date, weight, and the difference. And the one line is how each row is being added for that view when you go to the screen. Then we got these settings. So here there's a few buttons. We have the option for setting the goal weight, the phone number, the SMS reminder toggle, and it actually just allows you to save changes to the database. So we have those there, and the main screen is always just the waitlist screen where all the weight entries for the user is listed. So again, if there's any sort of error, it'll kind of like throw that back and mention that username null if there's not, if, somehow they got to the setting screen and there wasn't a username, um, wasn't like an account logged in, it should reflect that. And just a lot of logic for setting everything up. So over here, the intent is for checking whether they want to return to the main screen, and over here just for setting all the different um, options here: the goal weight, the phone number, the SMS uh, notification toggle, and a lot of it is just tied to constantly rewriting back to um, the database. So it's constantly kind of reloading the database instance for that user to track all that information, and just kind of focusing on the key areas. So it's like if it's the phone number, it'll reflect that field in the database. If it's the goal weight, it will reflect that field. And again, a lot more just toast messages about the same thing. And we have the request the SMS permission, so it should pop up to ask the user if they want notifications. The notifications would ideally pop up if they had met their goal weight after the app checks their current weight for that day. Then we have the user contents Java file. So for here, it just pretty much just stores and accesses the logged in user's details, like their username and just password and other relevant stuff. And it has like the basic constructor for just starting out. So by default, the SMS stays false, the phone number is null, the goal weight is 0, and the username and password is just empty username and password ready for input there. The weight data, it's going to be, or what I used here was like a model class that's supposed to represent just a single weight entry, and it holds fields uh, specifically pertaining to ID, the date, the name, the weight, the weight, the current weight, excuse me, the weight difference, and the goal weight, and that's all just reflected in the strings when it's editing the database entry. And then finally, the weight info Java screen. This is the main screen that the user is going to see right after they log in. So it has all those buttons to the previous screens we just discussed. So logging out, settings, add entry, edit entry. And again, just like a couple of the other files, it's relying on a recycler view to show all this information. And I have a lot of the logic here for all the buttons. So like the logout button over here, the opening the settings menu, opening the edit menu, opening the delete menu, and it's constantly just referring back to the weight info so all those operations can be done properly. So with that done, I'm actually going to start diving in just to into category 1. So I really want to just like focus in on just the structure of the app, and that's how I will tie it into the XML files too. So uh, for the login, specifically when the user's actually uh, logging into the app, it validates the credentials like right within the activity. In the onCreate method that I'm using is supposed to just wire up to the edit text fields for the username and password. And as soon as the login button is clicked, it checks those values against the database. And once it's functional, or assuming that the information is right, it will log the user in. It works, but something you'll see throughout the code is a lot of the logic between the UI and the database is tied directly together. So it's like, unfortunately, it's like if part of the UI isn't working properly, it might cause issues directly with the database as well. So, not specifically ideal, but it's something I'll address once I work on the finished project. And here is the login screen. So pretty simple: username, password, login, and new user. So when you put in that information, it will reflect the toast messages that'll tell you whether or not it's working properly. Next, I want to focus on go back to the weight info that we have here, and then take a look on the onCreate where these buttons are all being setup. So we have the logout, the settings, the add entry, the edit entry, and then delete entry. So this is pretty much like the main menu, or this helps me code the main menu of the app. So with all the buttons wired directly here, it allows me to set up the recycler view with like a layout manager, and it's good as like a prototype, but as you can see, it's a pretty big activity class. So all of the database logic and the buttons kind of exist in the same area over here. So if something's not working properly, that error kind of populates to um, everywhere else. Like, it's passable, but it's not really ideal. In that screen looks like this. So we have the edit, add weight, uh, delete in the settings, and the logout will just bring you back to the activity main screen. And that weight data activity has the 3 rows that we're focused on: the dates, the current weights, and the distance from the goal weights. Next, I want to focus on the logic specifically for the settings. So the settings here, it has pretty similar functions compared to the onCreate that we had just looked at. So pretty much the similar setup with the buttons based on the IDs. So goal weight, phone number, SMS notification, save in main menu screens. So the the logic here not only like sets up the buttons, but also just directly handles saving updates to the database directly. So when I use the save button, what it's going to do is it immediately calls the like update goal weight and update phone number method. So it's that new information is instantly saved to the uh, database. So there's not really like a separation between how it's visually shown and the logic like behind the scenes. So it's like as soon as it's saved, those fields are updated that you had just filled in on that screen. And that's pretty much what I want to go overall the for category 1. I really wanted to just dive in. Besides that general overview, me focusing on the login, the weight info area, the settings, and the recycle view. That's those pretty much make like the crux of the application. And my plan is to implement, like I mentioned, the CSV export option. That will be going directly on this screen here. The idea would be that like I mentioned, since a lot of the logic with the buttons and the database are tied directly together, it's pretty easy for me to run into errors. Ideally, with like the CSV export option, a user could export all their data list entries and maybe move it to a Excel sheet, or save it to some other program that has the means to read that file. When the program will pop up, or when the notification will pop up with the saving, it should allow them to pick exactly what program they want to save that CSV file to allow it to be readable. So this has like a lot of pros. Kind of increases the usability of the app, I would say. Allows users to generate their or back up their progress in case they lose access to the app. They can share it, email it, use it on other apps. It kind of expands the use of the data here, and it's kind of doing something fun with using um, Android's like built-in like file detection services. So once it's working, the mobile app here should pop up and say, oh, what app do you want to save this file with, or what would you normally save it with. In terms of weaknesses, there's definitely quite a bit. A lot of the methods that I use, it's all doing direct database calls. And like I mentioned, the connection, the strong link between the UI code and the database code kind of it makes it hard to maintain. When one goes, both of things go. And there's not really there's not really a lot of error handling. Like specifically in the um, login, it doesn't really handle missing usernames or properly. And the recycle view is always kind of assuming that the data set will never be null. So it'll throw errors at you, but it doesn't really, help you resolve anything for it. For category two, um, as I mentioned, the main screen of the app is just listing out the dates with the weights. As it stands, there's not really a way to sort these. That's an obvious issue, especially if a user has a lot of weights. We want them to be able to, use the app efficiently and sort everything um, properly. So that's what I'm going to go through um, right now for what exists so far in accessing the data weights for the SQLite um, data. So as it stands, if we go to the database user weight and go to get user weights, it's pretty much just it pulls all the weight entries directly from the SQLite database and just returns them as a array list. It holds all the relevant information that you would need, but again, it's not really sorted. So it kind of just seems like it's mostly just throwing stuff at you. Not that great. In the weight data class, here is where like a single weight uh entry is put in, and again, it's nothing really like revolutionary here. It's kind of just a container object without really much logic attached. Obviously, with like working with these files, I want to kind of tie it together to have a way to sort it, and obviously that enhancement would be the bar graph and line graph. In the another area that I want to touch on is the recycle view and the onbind view holder. Very like simple stuff here, just lining stuff up with the the columns, excuse me, and the array that it's running. It's kind of just since the array list is bound directly to like the layouts, the adapter just kind of just loops through the list that's there and just shows just pretty much whatever values are there. There's not really any sort of transformation. It's not being changed or sorted. It's just looping through the list and just printing out the values. So obviously the main thing here is we need some way to sort everything out, because obviously here for like the template I made, it's just 9 items. But if you were to do like much more, if you were tracking your progress over months, 90 days, it's not really a ideal setup. So I'm going to change that by implementing ideally both a line graph and a bar graph. So looking into a bit, I decided to try to use the library of the MPA Android chart, and that allowed me to make like a new activity that's going to read the array list of the weight data and convert it into chart entries. So even though the users will still be able to look at it, all their weight data here, that chart will allow them to toggle between like line graphs or line charts and bar charts, so they could see their progress in a more like organized like data structure that's just which is much more scalable compared to when you consider like having data up to weeks and months and not just several days in a row. So with some organization there, I really think that'll be a game changer for this app. So that's my plan for the data structure that I want to implement for category two. And going into the last category for databases, I kind of pretty much have touched on it so far. There isn't too much to expand on as it exists now. Everything is handled locally within SQLite. So if I go to database user and we look at areas such as update goal weight, it it's just a simple class that manages the user table. So you could add new users, update their goal weights and store their phone numbers, and it's just written as like straw strings or excuse me raw strings of data. So not really complicated. there, it's everything's just local. And pretty much the same case for the weight data specifically. So we're constantly just uh referencing that database and just reprinting out the columns without any sort of like structure being applied. So obviously it's like if the app was gone or the local database, the user no longer had access to it, everything would vanish, which isn't, particularly ideal. So the plan is to have SQL queries that are actually encoded in a local SQL server that I'll be running on my system. And as soon as the user is going to uh, log in, it'll prompt them with a message saying, connected to the SQL server. So that gives a bit more control over what users have access to the apps. And to do that, I'll most likely have to add like some sort of a connection class and use like a JDBC connection to handle that. So all the user logins and weight entries could be stored like on a central database, and even if the user changes devices, they'll still be able to log back in and access all that information. And say if an admin needed to make some adjustments or even delete users, they would be able to use that or to do that from a SQL server. So it's I'm pretty excited about these changes. Most of all, the SQL server. I think having like a local or a remote database where you could handle all the uh, user accounts will, go a long way. I think that would be pretty useful, and it would bring it a lot farther than just a simple, local SQL-Lite database. It's not really robust in terms of like security and organization. And just to go over the other screens I haven't really touched on yet, we have the settings screen that ties into the Java class here for settings. Then we have the add weight. So here it's like the calendar drop down with the weight entry, and then delete weights. It's always tied to just a single weight. And the edit weight is pretty much the same thing. It's almost exactly like the adding weight. You're just picking the date that currently has an entry for it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So the changes that I'm implementing here, obviously it's going to tie into the specific course outcomes and excuse me, the skills and course outcomes I discussed in our the template that we had submitted. So for the first change with the CSV export option, I think this is definitely like a practical innovation option. Excuse me, practical innovation because it's pretty much expanding on what the app already does and makes it transferable to other apps and other software. And the course outcome this will line up the most with is I believe it's outcome 4 because that discusses like meaningful and innovative use of skills to propel the software. So I think propelling it so that the data could be transferred to other mobile apps, it fits pretty well in the idea of like a mobile device app that's transferable to um, other apps or software. In regards to how the database, or excuse me, how the line chart and the bar chart demonstrates the skills, I think it shows my ability to create like valuable visual improvements. So obviously, mobile apps are all about visual improvements. The more sleeker, um, useful an app's user interfaces, the more likely it is to get engagement. Nobody wants to navigate through something that's frustrating. So I'm hoping by putting the bar chart and line chart, users will be more likely to want to track their weight because instead of just looking at simple just rows of data where it's really easy to get lost on specifics, they will be able to see, trends over time. And the outcome that would be being focused on here would be outcome two, because it's that outcome was about visual communications that are coherent, technically sound, and appropriately adapted to the audiences and the context. Obviously, the context here is quick on the go, once a day daily use of, okay, here's my weight for this day, here's my weight for the next day. What's that look like in a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and so on. And for the third category, the skill that I'm hoping to show here is that I have the ability to make the work that I have here scalable with the addition of a um, like a connection class that I'll be adding to the app that will allow the user to just connect directly to a SQL database as soon as they log in. That definitely allows the app to scale upwards because an admin can manage any and all user accounts. So if anybody was, finding some way to exploit the app or, do something they shouldn't, they can be, deleted directly from the SQL server. And uh, if somebody needed help with their account or something like that, those settings or user specific stuff can also be managed from the uh, server. So allows admins to exert like a bunch of control, and it also keeps in mind the scale of the app instead of it just being local uh, to the phone itself. And I think definitely for the database, the outcome that is being focused here is definitely outcome five, because it's supposed to consider ensuring privacy, enhance security of data and resources, uh, having someone that can be in charge of all the user accounts in the case of some sort of misuse of the app, being able to manage all those people at the same spot will definitely help the security of the app itself. So that's how the outcomes and the skills I'm hoping to show will tie into all these changes. Uh, Thanks for bearing with me, and I appreciate any and all feedback that you could provide. This has been pretty much my first legitimate code review, so it's not perfect, but hopefully as I you know get farther into the project, I can practice that a bit more and brush up on my presentation skills. So thanks for your time, Dr. Ogo. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend.